Welcome to Innovators at the Intersection. I'm Jordan Weiss, and I'm thrilled to share stories of visionaries and creatives at the crossroads of culture and STEAM. Our monthly podcast and bi-monthly publication highlight change makers that are shaping a better tomorrow. Jen, so nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's so exciting to be here. I love the studio and I love everything that you guys are doing with multicultural and really promoting that with innovation.
Thanks so much. Well, listen, like I said, excited to have you. So you have a really interesting background. You served in the Navy,
Yes.
right, for a number of
17 years total.
17 years, and then you get into the private sector where you're working on brand innovation. And can you walk us through a little bit about your career on the military side and then transitioning into the private sector, and if there were certain things that you took from, I guess, your experience in the Navy, whether it was leadership or creativity or just how you were approaching a problem, where you see or felt like there are parallels? Because I find it very interesting, and I've heard some amazing stories about people that have served our country, and I do want to say thank you for serving our country.
Thank you.
It means a lot.
Well, interestingly enough, I was a musician in high school, and I played the piano, I played the flute, I was in jazz band, wind ensemble, marching band, and one day a Marine came into the band room and started talking about playing for the Marine Corps band. I had never thought about the military before, but that kind of got me interested into looking what was out there. And of course, all the other recruiters kind of grab a hold of you and you're like, you're smart, you could see the world, we'll pay for your college, you don't want to be a Marine, like join the Navy. And like somehow I ended up on this whole other journey where I didn't become a musician, but I actually became a naval officer. So I applied for this Navy ROTC scholarship. I went to the George Washington University. That's where I did my officer training for 4 years. I graduated. They shipped me right out to my first ship. And so I was on 2 different classes of ships during my time on active duty. So the first was an LHA.
Okay.
And you can kind of think about it as like a mini aircraft carrier, but we're an amphibious assault ship. So our whole mission is transporting Marines and their equipment. So I served a deployment right after 9/11, so it was a global war on terrorism.
Yeah, well, I remember quite well, yes.
That was my time on the USS Peleliu, LHA 5. And then I went to a frigate after that, which is a much smaller class of ship, originally designed for anti-submarine warfare, but the mission kind of evolved over time and it became more focused around counter-narcotic operations. So we would take like a Coast Guard detachment on board and we would basically hunt drug runners on the high seas. So I spent a lot of times in
that's
Central and South America.
That's heavy stuff. That's really?
Yeah. So very different. So a lot of different places. You had like 2 kind of different aspects of it. One of it was more war fighting. You learn how to like drive the ship and fight the ship and, all the different weapon systems. And then the other aspect was kind of more aligned to the business world where you're a division officer, kind of like a manager, and you're responsible for technicians doing the preventive and corrective maintenance on board the ship. So it's kind of a multifaceted job, overall. So that was my time out to sea. After that, I transitioned to my shore duty role as a naval science instructor at the Merchant Marine Academy. So I taught students, over like 1,000 students over the 3-year period.
Right.
Dabbled in some recruiting, dabbled in some public affairs, got my master's in strategic public relations.
Right.
And that's really what gave me my kind of interest in marketing. So, coming out of a military background, a lot of the roles that align to you aren't going to be direct marketing roles. There are a lot of supply chain, operational project management roles.
Okay.
So this headhunter company called Cameron Brooks, they found me and they're like, hey, we can put you through this corporate America mini boot camp. And so they did. And you basically went to a hotel, you did speed dating with a bunch of different companies. And then that's where I landed my first civilian job, which was actually with Godiva Chocolatier. So I didn't hop directly into innovation. I had a few different roles before I got into innovation. So I did like continuous improvement. I was a maintenance manager. I was project manager, a lot of supply chain operational roles, working for Godiva, working for Ingersoll Rand Train as a construction PM. And then after that, that's when I finally got into innovation. And I did 8 years total, within innovation in the alcohol space. And I evolved from project management into the more of the brand side innovation. So it was kind of a long journey.
Yeah.
Breaking into the marketing and innovation field, from that like small passion when I was getting my master's and said, oh, hey, this might be kind of cool. Maybe this is a direction that I want to go.
Yeah, it's kind of sort of non-linear, but then it kind of is sort of linear too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, what I was asking, or I mentioned in the kind of in that question, there was like some questions within the questions. Were there certain things that you picked up from serving in the military when you transitioned into the private sector that you felt like these were skills that were really transferable and I'm applying them, in real time at these positions?
Yes, definitely. So, I mean, one of
Love to hear
them,
about it.
yeah, one of them is leadership, right? And learning how to lead and manage. And, when you go into the military, you can lead anyone and you can manage anything. And I think that really helped going into the civilian sector because I went to a lot of different industries, a lot of different job functions, and really having the ability to just learn so quickly and absorb like a large volume of information helped me kind of quickly pivot into these different roles because you come into a new role and people know you're new, but it doesn't matter. The expectations are the same and you've got to quickly gain that momentum and come here and be at the same level or more than your peers. So I think really learning how to lead and manage anywhere and anything,
Mm-hmm.
and then the ability to learn very quickly and completely. And then resilience and courage, like you face different types of obstacles. Corporate America is a different type of war zone than what you face in the military.
Yes, it is.
And
Very much so.
so, it's a different battlefield, but nonetheless, like you use that resilience to really adapt and overcome whatever challenges you face. And the core values, were kind of in me, before I joined the military, like the Navy core values are honor, courage, and commitment. There's something that I never let go of, no matter where I went or what I did or what the culture of, the particular organization was. It's something that was very important to me was to stay true to myself and who I am and the values that have been instilled in me and to, continue to push that forward, wherever I am.
Yeah, well, when we connected initially, that realness, that authenticity definitely came through, and it's just it's always nice to connect with people that are genuine, and the fact that again you served in the military and then have been doing what you're doing in the private sector around innovation is great. Speaking of innovation. Really want to hear about how this whole project, or not necessarily a project, this is actually a brand within Kahlua came to life, the Kahlua and Dunkin' collab. So if I'm remembering this correctly, this was your brainchild, correct? Or was it, okay, I don't want to speak out of turn. You were part of a team that developed this, this brand this product under Kahlua, and tell me about how this all happened, the evolution of it, and then the idea, and then kind of walk me through kind of taking it to market. I know you're involved as obviously being on the innovation side, so.
Yeah, so the way Pernod Ricard is set up is they have different like entities that kind of do different functions.
Okay.
So there's a team that kind of handles a licensing partnership, and this kind of partnership with Dunkin'
Right.
kind of landed on their lap in a way, and it in a way was a no-brainer, right? Like coffee and coffee, America's number one coffee and donut chain, and then the number one coffee liqueur in the U.S. is Kahlua. So it made total sense. The objective of an innovation is to usually drive scale or have a specific consumer in mind that you're trying to target. So having the Dunkin' brand equity was really important for this innovation to help achieve that objective of driving scale. So, once that partnership was established, like, hey, we're going to do this, and that's when it comes over to innovation. And that's where, I led the project from the beginning, like idea, all the way till, the product was actually produced.
Right.
So, it's a whole innovation process. It was about a year-long process and, a lot's involved. So it's a lot of consumer research around testing what ideas would resonate with, not only among all of the spirit drinkers, but specifically with Dunkin' drinkers or
Right.
with Kahlua drinkers. And, the main objectives was really to beat Bailey's and really establish Kahlua within the cream liqueur subcategory.
Ah, okay.
So that's why, yeah, so we call it line extension. So it's like a line extension off of like the original SKU Kahlua. But it was very important, in my mind, when I was working on the liquid brief, for the team to start putting together the different liquid samples and tasting back and forth. and thinking about like the margin was to make sure we actually could compete with Bailey's, and that's one way where I think I leverage my background of kind of common sense, not the traditional trained marketer. Like, what are we really trying to do? We want to beat Bailey's. So if you want to beat Bailey's, you have to be creamy. You have to have a creamy consistency, and you have to be a dessert liqueur. And
Right.
I love drinking that type of stuff. I love dessert. So just in my mind, I'm like, that's key, and there's you can go back and forth on this as a margin we want to achieve, but would you rather have like X margin on 10,000 cases or a slightly lower margin on 50,000 cases? And to me, the latter is more important. So that was like one of the main things I felt like we really had to nail, because you can have bright packaging, but if the consumer drinks it and they don't want to drink it again,
I mean, yeah,
you have a
you
problem.
can't have smoke, and I mean, people are going to sniff it out. If it doesn't taste good, it doesn't taste good, and goodbye. But
Yes.
that's really interesting. Also, I am picking up on the fact your background in the Navy and the military, and how that was transferable, even to the way that how you're discussing your approach to this product. Right? I mean, I am kind of hearing that in the way that you're discussing it. So it's really interesting.
And really, like, I'm very consumer centric marketer. Like, I believe heavily in data and consumer testing because, you know, at the end of the day, the consumer is the one who's going to buy the product or not buy the product.
Right.
So they're the most important. So every step of the way, like once the liquid was developed, like testing that with consumers in a liquid gastrograph, when I wrote the liquid brief for the design agency, like, what are we looking to achieve? Well, we want people to realize that it actually is a cream liqueur. We want people to realize that it's a caramel flavor. We want to leverage the Dunkin' brand equity. We want to capture the playful spirit of both brands together and really have it pop on shelf to grab the consumer's attention. But also that required consumer testing. So it was consumer testing kind of every step of the way, like from the time of the ideas, the liquid got tested, the pack got tested. So that was like something that was very important to me, to make sure that what we were delivering is a product that the consumer was going to buy. And we're doing the innovation for a reason, because sometimes, innovations are done and maybe they're pet projects, or maybe they weren't completely validated with consumers and then they don't achieve that scale. So, and you don't get a redo, you can do another innovation after that. But if you have one that's a flop out in market, it's automatically going to cast like a shadow onto that next line extension. So it's very important to get it right and to also do it in the right timing.
Wow. Yeah, you mentioned going back to the Navy days. You were doing something connected with science, right? Was it teaching or?
Yeah, I was a naval science instructor. That was teaching. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just kind of bringing it to this, this innovation with Kahlua, this drink that you put together with or collaborated on with your team with Dunkin'. And it sounds like everything that you're mentioning here, there sounds like a lot of science behind it.
It is. There is like research and development that goes into it, and like, the science of like analyzing the data and putting that together. As a naval science instructor, like, the words may convey it to be something other than it is. Like, basically, you're just teaching like leadership and ethics, rates and ranks.
Okay, got it.
Navy regulations. So it was like that was a title, but those are the types of courses that you're teaching the students to prepare them for their commission.
Okay. Well, I mean, it seems kind of interesting, just the connection. We hear the term purpose a lot. When you think of purpose-driven innovation, that term, what does that mean to you, and applying it to the certain maybe projects or products that you've worked on? Purpose is seeing more brands out there, more companies that are really leaning into purpose, which is really nice to see. So in your experience, like, what does that mean to you, and how are you kind of applying that to how you're working in these on these projects?
So for me, like, purpose-driven innovation is achieving the objective, and the objective should be to make the company money, right? Like, thinking about it from a common sense perspective.
Yes.
So, or to grow the consumer base, right? So like sometimes you have a targeted play where you're looking to just grow within a specific subset, but most of the time companies are looking to launch big bet innovations that are actually going to drive scale and drive revenue. So in order to achieve that, you have to create a product that's capable of doing that. And so a lot of that goes back to like the consumer research, what they're willing to buy. Is it going to be incremental to the brand? Is there going to be any cannibalization? Like these are the important things to really check. So, starting with a great idea that's backed by consumer data, and then moving into creating a great product that supports that. And then, as it goes along to the other teams, like making sure you have a great launch, great activation, and that there's really funding to support that innovation to achieve like the purpose or the objective.
Cool. I want to find out a little bit more about the person behind the person. So, could you tell me a little bit about, I guess, your background, just growing up, where you grew up, just a little bit more about yourself? I mean, hearing all these great stories about obviously your profession is so important, but you also want to know, a little bit about who you are, and then how you we kind of know the path that you took, but it's always interesting to find out more about whatever you want to share. We're all human beings. We all have stories. So would love to hear.
Well, I grew up in Long Island.
Okay.
In Glen Cove. My mom was born, in New York. She's Puerto Rican and Italian.
Okay.
And then my father was Spaniard. So he was born and raised in Spain, came to this country when he was 25. My parents met in kind of a cool way. Like at the time, my dad was like singing in Casa Galicia with like Julio Iglesias and Celia Cruz.
Really?
And yeah, he actually sounded like Mark Anthony. I'm not just saying that.
Was he a professional singer?
Well, he had his own professional band. Actually, my godmother, who I'm going to see later, was his piano player.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is really interesting, because when this goes back to the beginning of the conversation, you're talking about music.
Yes.
And the music being in your background, and you being a musician playing multiple instruments. So this is cool.
Yeah, the whole family. It's a whole musical family. My mom was a flamenco dancer, so that's how they met at a club one night, and they were together for many, many years. But, like family is very important to me, and like the values that were instilled in me. Like my dad was always like a very hard worker. Like he started out like with the band, then he was painting chairs in Shea Stadium, and he worked his way up, to be a chief building operating engineer, working for Chase Manhattan Bank under Cushman and Wakefield.
Okay.
And taught many people behind him. And, he's a very direct person, very honest, would give you the shirt off his back though, like very kind, good person.
I get that vibe from you. I get that vibe from you, like.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I do. I really do. So anyway, but
that's, he was like my hero. My father unfortunately passed away 4 years ago.
Well, I'm sorry. But,
thank you. We were so close, and like I try to honor him every day by, living the way that he would have lived and holding true to that, because it's very hard in this world. Like it's very easy for people to bend. And to bend on their ethics and their values, especially like working in corporate America, like there could be a lot of heat and a lot of pressure. And so it's like really important to stay true to who you are, because you'll never regret it, no matter what happens.
Yeah.
So
holding the line.
Yeah.
A lot. It's really important to do that. I mean, that's important, and we need more people kind of holding the line, and accountability.
Yes.
Because if we're not doing that, then things can kind of run amok. So, I mean, to your dad's credit, I mean, and probably also to the way that you conduct yourself, I think it's really important, right?
I think so. Like to me, authenticity is important. Like that's what makes you feel comfortable. It's who you are, and it's what everybody brings to the table and what people bring to innovation. Like, and that's very important. Innovation is bringing yourself and your background kind of into it. And that's how I think of things. Like anything I do, I want to do with excellence, and I want it to be like the best it can be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not someone who can remove themselves and be like, whatever. Like I'm in it for the paycheck. Like it's not who I am. Like if I do it, it's going to be done right. Or I'm not going to do it at all. So, that's a big part of my background, like my values. Obviously music. I love dancing. I'm a Zumba instructor, but I never taught any classes.
Okay.
Like maybe one day I'll do it.
One day.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have my son. I have a 16-year-old son. I'm a single parent. So that's been a big part of my journey. The Navy, obviously, like all of the friendships that I've formed, like when you're in those kind of environments, you form lifelong friends.
Right.
That you really
only
can
imagine.
count on, And so like that's been a really amazing part of my journey. And, doing things that I love. I love fall festivals, going to the beach, like
It's good to know. Yeah, just regular person. It's nice to be able to like and just enjoy things, enjoy life, and then you end up bringing a lot of those interests and passions to. It's great to be able to bring that into your career, and it sounds like that creativity, that ingenuity. When we talk about And we hear so much these days about innovation, right? It's like everywhere is innovation. So when you think of the word innovation based on your experience, your life experience, your work experience, what does it mean to you? Just in Jen Alvarez's kind of definition, how does that word resonate with you? And because we hear it all the time, but what does it mean to you?
To me, it means doing something outside the box, like being creative. Don't think like this is the way we always did things or this is the right way. Because sometimes you could have 50 people going left, but the direction is still right.
Ah,
And maybe you're the only one saying that, but it's really like advocating for what you believe in. What's a creative idea? What do consumers want? Like creating something new, creating something useful that consumers actually want.
hmm
And I think sometimes what people forget is we're all consumers, even if you're creating a product,
everybody, all of us.
you know? So like sometimes people get very stuck in that structured, like, oh, this is how the consumer shops and this is how they think. And it
Right.
becomes very cerebral. And it's like you have to step out for a second and be like, when you're walking down the aisle, what do you want? Are you in a hurry? Are you looking for the best price? Are you grabbing the packaging that stands out to you? What's going to make you buy it again? Does it taste good? Like it's the very simple, basic things that are really like the monumental winners of how to really win at anything. It's just thinking about like what's real, what's authentic, like what's actually going on and not overthinking and creating this like big matrix. It's not always
Right.
that difficult. Like sometimes it's very simple.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when you think about brands and brand loyalty and just, people's experience and personality and what kind of shape their points of view. It's like you don't really, there's a lot of psychology behind it too. As
Yes.
far as if I'm walking down that aisle, I'm just starting to think like, well, why am I picking up this product as opposed to this, or why am I getting these? I like cookies, you know what I mean? So why am I getting these chocolate chip cookies instead of these types of chocolate chip cookies? And there's a lot of things that go into kind of the mindset as far as what's driving the person to actually, right, pick up that specific product. And could be like comfortability, familiarity, obviously taste if it's food. But these are. Tell me a little bit from your point of view, because it's really interesting once you start to peel back the layers a little bit. When you start, as humans, what makes us tick, especially as consumers.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like what grabs your attention? What are you looking for? What do you actually need? What's practical? What's easy to use, easy to open? Like I think about myself, right? I love wine,
I like wine too.
right?
Yeah,
If I get
I love red wine or white wine.
I'll drink both, but
Okay.
I'm more of a white wine girl. So
I'm more red, but that's all
Yeah.
right. That's okay. We could still,
better
yeah.
for you. That's you.
No, they're both good. But anyway,
So for me, like I don't like using the I don't like opening up the cork. Like to me, I always get little bits of cork in there,
I'm
and
the
I don't
worst.
like it.
I'm the worst
Right?
cork opener ever. You know how many pieces of cork I get
Yes.
in that glass of wine? Does that happen to
That
you?
happens to
And
me.
how do you? Okay, this is. Then getting the cork out, like to try to extract the wine when you have pieces of the cork. Do you drink parts of the cork? Like, what do
I
you do?
fish it out because that's how I am. I fish the little pieces
I do
out.
too. And then I don't know. I probably have drank a bit more cork than wine. But anyway, not to digress. You're not alone in the cork situation. I'm a terrible wine opener when it comes to the cork.
Yeah, so like to me, that's an example of like utility, right? Because
Okay.
like me and you, we rather buy the one that we can just like unscrew the cap and
I'll
we don't
twist off
have to-
any day.
Yeah.
Any day.
So to me, that's, part of it. Like on the go is popular now. A lot of people want like something that's portable, easy. I can take it to like a baseball game or
The
like,
box. Remember the
Right.
boxed wine?
yeah, the bag and box RTDs are very popular now. Like the ready to drink cans that have a little bit less alcohol content.
Right.
Like people are associating that with better for you because that's like a huge trend in innovation right now is like, I want to lose weight. I want to
Right.
be healthier. And it's actually really impacting the alcohol industry because the Generation Z
Yes.
is not drinking in the same manner as the older generation.
Yes, they're aware of the health ramifications of alcohol in excess, of
Yes.
course, because they're still drinking. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
And even the older generations are like, oh, well, I'm getting a little more health, conscious
Exactly.
too.
Exactly.
And
Want to stretch
it's
it.
really hurting things. So like, different trends that are happening or different like health and wellness kind of movements. Like, I think this all kind of impacts, what consumers gravitate towards or not, or even having like a calorie count, like Skinny Girl margaritas, they do very well because if someone wants to enjoy a margarita but not have the same calories as you would,
Right.
maybe from another brand, they go with that brand because they're like, oh, it's like how do you say it? Like a less guilty pleasure because I know how many calories there are,
Right.
and it's not as fattening as maybe if I ordered like a different margarita. So, I think that's how, certain brands are really kind of leveraging, some of those things.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I'm a beer guy. I love a good beer, especially IPAs. And Athletic Brewing really has done an amazing job in that market. It's almost like, I don't know if they set the bar, but I am a consumer and definitely there's loyalty there. It's because when we're talking about, taste, how does it, the packaging, all this, to me, it's all about the taste, right? Especially, if you get a little older, it's like it's not just about obviously feeling relaxed, but, if you've developed kind of a palate, it's just interesting. So when we're talking about innovation, that's like a great example of a brand or a company that really is like, all right, well, we're going to create something. Everybody thinks of beer and they think of just alcohol, but we're going to do it as like a non-alcohol or very, very barely any alcohol, but the product, it speaks for itself. So I'm just building off of what you were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes it's more challenging to leverage those trends when your brand is not like in line with those trends. So like if you think about like Kahlua or a cream liqueur, typically not, calorie friendly. It's
Right.
typically more fattening. So you have to kind of fully lean into the fact that you're rewarding yourself, you're treating yourself. It's an indulgent like treat,
Right. But that's okay
yeah.
too, because we need to indulge.
Yes. And I love dessert. So like, again,
Yes.
that's like my favorite thing. So.
Absolutely. So this is an important question. So you've mentored leaders from both, the military to the boardroom. When you think of kind of what you've taken and learned from these leaders that have brought you courage and resilience, are there specific things that you've learned, in both areas and from specific people? You don't have to mention names, but just in both areas that you've really taken, their leadership abilities and have, incorporated into, how you approach your work.
I think most of my lessons came from the Navy. That was like really the foundation of my career, and really part of my life for a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, it was learning how to approach a problem and kind of dissect it like very quickly and come up with creative solutions. So, people might think like, oh, the military is very structured, very processed. And yes, there is structure and process, but there's also an element of creativity and intuition that goes into it around problem solving.
Yeah, could you tell me more about the, creativity and problem solving within military? Just interesting to hear more, because people don't think about that a lot. When you think of the military, the first thing you might not think about is creativity, but it's a really interesting point. So could you build on that?
Yeah, because it's not always an exact science, right? So like if you have a division of people and you're leading people, it's not as command and control as people would think, because people are still people. It's not just like I give you this order and you go do it. You really have to still build a relationship with people and earn their trust and their respect. And that's really something that like I honed when I was in the Navy, like my undergrad, I was a criminal justice major, political science minor,
Okay.
but I was always in engineering on the ship, an engineering division officer. Didn't really know much about engineering.
I was going to ask, did you have any kind of background in engineering?
No, but
Okay. You probably picked some things up on the spot, right?
exactly. Like, enough to be like dangerous enough so they can't BS you, right? Because like the guys who work for you,
Okay.
they know what they're doing. Like they're the ones actually performing like the maintenance. They're the ones who are like the experts and the actual like engineers by profession. And your job, no matter what they do, is like really to learn how to lead and how to manage. So it's like, as long as you take care of them, they'll take care of you. And so that was like a very important lesson learned in terms of like direct leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And even problem solving, like we have different standing orders. Like, if you're driving the ship at night, like there's certain situations where like the captain will have these standing orders and this is when you have to call him and wake him up, or this is the closest, point of approach that we can get with other ships. So like there's a lot of things there, but like there could be different situations that come up that you have to think about, like what is the best thing to do? And you have to think on the fly. So I think just like learning how to think quickly and make good decisions and to be 10 steps ahead. And that was one of the things that became like very challenging when I first, entered into corporate America, is that type of thinking is not so familiar.
Right.
So sometimes like you're trained to think so many moves ahead and so many permutations ahead of every possible scenario that you're already here. So they may think you're here, but you're not behind them. You're actually all the way here and they don't realize it till later. So that's like sometimes very challenging because you're like, oh, I already know what to do. And when you're around other people who are in the military and think like you and you're in that environment, everything kind of gels.
Mm-hmm.
But when you kind of have that mentality and you're operating in a different type of environment, it can be like nails on a chalkboard, like sometimes very necessary
Right.
and very helpful. And it helps to really drive things forward. But there could be like a bit of a culture clash, sometimes.
That's really interesting. So it's like you could see the end game, right? So at the begin, I play chess. I lose against the computer every time, but it's still good practice, like muscle memory, right? So it's like looking at the end game, like seeing the big picture. So you start looking at that big picture, but then it's like, okay, you have where you need to go and then kind of working your way towards that big picture.
Yes.
So what you're saying, if I'm reading this correctly, is that on the, not everybody, but, not on the corporate side, not the military side, people might be thinking more of the step by step and not necessarily saying, all right, I'm going to start here.
Yes.
And re-engineer and kind of work, the way, towards this goal. A lot of people are thinking, all right, I'm going to just start here and then I'm going to move a little bit right here. And then I could totally see how that's a clash because it's almost, it's two different points of view and two different ways of looking at, how do you get to the end result? So,
yes.
Wow, I never really thought about it like that.
It's like you being big picture and detail oriented, like at the same time.
Right.
Simultaneously. But it helps to also have diversity of thought and people who think a different way because it does like balance things out. And I think, that's what makes teams great is when you have that diversity of not just like culture, ethnicity,
right.
but just like diversity of how people think and how people operate, so and I think like, you come with a structured background, but you can operate creatively within that because if everyone's just like, what do we call it, like noodling on something,
okay,
you can't noodle forever, right? Like if you're trying to launch an innovation in a certain time period,
the clock's ticking. You can't just keep going forever. You gotta make it happen. I totally get that. I was end this question just because kind of connecting. We're talking a little bit about Gen Z, next generation, innovation, the future. Any advice you have or for anybody that's coming into the workforce or that's currently in the workforce, maybe just not that long, as far as, you've made, a real, I would say you're successful, but you're also genuinely passionate and care about what you do and what you've done throughout your career. So are there any jewels you can pass on to the next generation that are coming into the workforce or that, just kind of started to give them or to help guide them a little bit, because we're all looking for guidance, and especially when you come into, kind of your first job, right? So anything you could shed light on, given your really impactful background?
I think, be willing and open to learn new things. Like that's very important. And it's kind of difficult, when you go from different careers or different functions or different industries, because it's great to be an expert.
Mm-hmm.
You have a level of comfort when you're an expert and people have, a certain viewpoint of you, but to start again from the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
it takes a different type of courage and resilience to be like, okay, like I know I'm an expert here, but now I've started here and it really got to put like an ego aside and just be like, well, I just got to learn and I just got to get there,
Right.
and not like focus on what's going on around you, like really be focused on your mission, like whatever that is in life, whether it's career or something personal, just be willing to learn, be focused, be mission driven. And above all, like care, like just
That's
care
so
about,
important.
care about what you're doing, care about people, think about how things affect people. And, I always say like, never sell your soul, like
Never.
be true to you. And like that'll take you far in
It
life.
does, and it means everything. I mean, integrity, authenticity. Um, wearing your heart on your sleeve. There's something to be said about that. Um, I think that's where real leadership comes from. You think about some great leaders, whether they're coaches, great, amazing coaches like people like John Wooden, or I don't know, just people that have really, led uh, through example and with integrity. Not with the iron fist. I feel the same way. I think it's really important. So.
And that's how people follow you, if you are in a leadership position, especially if direct and indirect even, it's a little bit harder, you have to come at it from a different angle and approach from like the expertise and listening to the different feedback and collaborating. So like different methods for like different, types of leadership.
Right. And at the end of the day, we're all people, we're all humans. It's like, you want to be able to connect with somebody. And if you want to bring out the best in them, your leadership ability really needs to reflect that connection to that other person. Because if you're just coming from the place of kind of tough love, I mean, sometimes, look, I guess you need that. But I mean, in your experience, do you like empathy and being able to connect with somebody from that position of, if you are a leader or in charge of somebody, do you find that like to be really important to be able to connect with that person, to bring out the best in that person?
I really do think it is. And sometimes you don't realize like the impact you're having on someone, that you think like, oh, that's a small thing. Like that was like not a big deal that I did that. But to them, it meant so much more. And I'll give you an example. So when I was in the Navy on one of my ships, there was a guy who got injured.
Mm-hmm.
And, he had a problem with his hip. He was limping. And, it's a different kind of like tough mentality and culture. And so, some people like gave him a little bit of a hard time, or they thought he was faking or whatever the case.
Okay.
But, talking about perspective,
Mm-hmm.
when I started my training, I actually fell 25 feet off a marine obstacle course.
Wow, that first of all, that must have really hurt.
Yes.
Were you okay? I'm not laughing. Were you in a lot of pain? Did you
Well,
break
it does.
anything?
It feels like somebody like hit you in the back with a 2x4. Like it stings, because what happened was I landed on my feet, so I have compression fractured vertebrae that's permanently dented, herniated disc, nerve damage.
This
torn
all happened
ligaments.
from that?
Yes, happened when I was 18 years old, and I still kept going through my training. Like, I could have gotten easily kicked out because that was before the program really even started. But I kept going. I was like, no, I'm going to
Suck it
keep
up,
this.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I kept going and I did it, and I, still got commissions, still went off to a ship. But having, that background, knowing what it's like to be injured and kind of work through that, gave me the perspective to understand that he was going through something. And, so I would stand up for him, but I didn't think anything about it. But years later, he connected with me like on Facebook, and he's like, it meant so much to me that you believe me to this day. Like, I never forgot it. Like, it meant the world to me when I felt like nobody cared and nobody believed in me. And I was like, I thought it was such a small, normal thing to do, but to him, it meant so much more,
Yeah, well, that's like leading and living by your code, and paying it forward to somebody that he'll do the same thing for somebody else.
Yeah.
And that just will continue to ripple. So that's that's a great story. And yeah, I'm all about that, all about really trying to, or learning at least, to lead more through empathy,
And those are the people who remember you, and they'll do anything for you, even like years down the road. So I think that's the most important trait. And like, and knowing like not everybody's the same. You can't lead everybody with the same approach, because
No.
people have different needs and different expertise. And, you kind of have to tailor your approach sometimes to, the people on your team.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when you come into the corporate world, or into the work world, a lot of the times it's like you learn from people that, that do lead from a place of authority and with the iron fist. So it's hard, like you just learn that. It's like learned behavior. But then when you start to realize, like the story you just were telling about that gentleman about, being a bit more compassionate and just like understanding, that is just as important, if not more important, to bring out the best in somebody. Because if you keep, browbeating somebody, it's only going to end up so far. And you know what? A lot of times what ends up happening is the person that had all this potential ends up going in another direction because that leader, that coach, that boss.
They can make or break you a lot of times,
Yeah, you have any experience in that?
None that I can talk about.
Okay, yeah, all right. I do too, but anyway. Jen, listen, it was so nice having you here today. Really appreciated all of your insights, your wisdom you imparted, from your experience, your life experience. It means so much, and we're so happy to share your story.
And thank you, Jordan. Thank you for taking the time to believe in me and my story and, sharing it on your podcast. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, well, you have a very important story. And again, thank you for serving our country because that's really important. I mean, everybody that serves in the military, anytime I see them, always say thank you because that's the most selfless act, so thanks.